Recorded March 5th, 2026. We're breaking the show up a little bit. We always have this banter, and we generally put our guests in the green room. And I'm like, that's not fair. Plus, we run out of beer and we run out of snacks. So our guest is going to be here and be privileged to the useless and mindless banter that Franklin and I are doing. Good afternoon, Franklin. How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing, Edward?
You know what? Life is fair unless it happens to me first. Then it's not fair. It's very unfair. But weather here in Atlanta is great. It's 77 degrees outside. The birds are birding. The bees are beesing. Is that do bees bees or do they bee? I don't know. To be or not to be. I don't know. So we'll see. But interesting week. Was supposed to be a light week. I found that this has probably been the most technically focused I've been in a long time, even though people have been unreal.
You did your homework. You did your homework, you're saying?
No. The thing about being a smart student is getting someone else to do your homework. Hence, Chris is on. Right. But I did confirm this is part of a two-part rebuttal to you throwing me under the bus about not doing my AI homework. So Chris is going to come on, and we're going to talk about Sentinel. We're going to talk about MCP server. We're going to talk about artificial intelligence, and we're talking about transforming and evolving SOC operations as we know it, right? While we're hyper-focused on Sentinel today, you're seeing this across all major players, whether they be top tier, rated SIEMs, mid-tier, boutique, log aggregation technologies. So I think it feels good to do this. It sort of reminds us of our roots when you and I started the show years ago. We're almost 5 years old. We'll be 5 years, Frank, in a couple of months. Wow.
No, I think we're...
You saying what, Frank?
I'm thinking it's 21, 22, 23, 24. You're 6 years. You're already 6 years. January will be six. January, a few months ago, would be 6 years.
Golly, man, I thought it was 5. I don't know why when you and I first discussed this, I'm thinking about the time we were contemplating doing this. Maybe I think you're right.
That was like October, November of 2019.
Wow.
When I said, what do you want from me?
I know. You and I almost stopped being friends then. I was like, he's just being grouchy. That's right. I was at the old house before I moved here. That's right. Golly. Yeah. So, wow, 6 years. We've had some time off. We've had various hosts, numerous guests, repeat guests, Chris, themes,
so
stuff.
What technical did you do? You start off, then you stop. Now you're leaving me hanging. You said a technical week. I want to know. Everyone wants to know in the chat. They're like, all right, why was it such a technical week?
I really had to get down into our technologies around XDR to try to solve a problem with the way our CASB solution worked. And I think that's a dying term. I think that the nuance of what a CASB was originally used for is sort of being piecemealed out to different things, specifically in the Microsoft ecosystem. When you're looking at Agent 365, Agent ID, you're looking for shadow AI now rather than shadow IT. Shadow IT is now slowly becoming synonymous with shadow AI, but it still has, in my humble opinion, I'm not of renown as so you industry experts. I said this to a customer. Shadow IT was the result of everybody having budget and the cost of entry being so low. Everybody could stand up a server. Everybody can do this. Everybody can do this because you didn't have to go procure a server. You didn't have to go get permissions. And shadow IT became very prevalent. That's why you didn't wait for the IT department to do something. You had the ability to go buy a server, buy the software or download it, install it up on your desk, connect it to an VLAN infrastructure or something that didn't have NAC to control the correspondence on your network, and hence shadow IT was there. The same thing, new tricks, old dog, new tricks, shadow AI. The consumer entry is such a low. You can get a pro grade version of any of the ones for $20 a month. They're super powerful. It's open source. You got lobster claws or open claws or whatever else is going on that's going to cause you another bunch of headaches that's going on out there. So now you're having shadow AI. So throw IT out of it. it's shadow AI and IT. It's synonymous. And the exacerbating part of it is we're looking at agents in a manner that we're still trying to create an artificial boundary between compute, intelligence, and skill and flesh and biology. You won't be able to tell soon. And so you have to, people are trying to figure out how to govern this. You govern it the same way that you govern the way that people are navigating your stuff, because maybe three to four control planes. The DevOps plane, the identity plane, operation plane, you got to do it the same way. And I'm almost finished writing the blog on this. And I'll put it on our blog after the show. And it was an interesting question that the customer had. The customer said, you have 3 new roles, maybe 4, AI administrator, AI developer, AI something else that are inside Entra. How do I know who gets what rights? And that was a very basic question, but very valid. And you when you go least privilege, you're trying to go least privilege on something that you don't have a complete picture of where the concentric circles overlap and where the boundaries are. You can sit here and say I'm a developer, but now developers have to have security chops. Security people have to have developer chops. Operations have to have both chops. And so you're looking at this. But I had to dive into that, follow up from an MCT that I did with a customer that I'm trying to get my hands around what they're trying to do, but application enforcement based on device enforcement as well as identity. And I'm dealing with Macs, right? And the world doesn't want to hear that there's not equal parity between Linux, a Mac OS, which is bind. If you from the old school, it's just bind, right? And then in Windows, they don't care, right? The only differentiator now may be, is it a user class workload OS, Windows, blah, 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 or is it a server class OS, Linux, and your distro of choice, right? Or Unix or mainframe. And that's the only thing customers are going to be satisfied with. Is it a consumer OS or is it a server class OS? Now, very few people, I know some nerds that run Linux on their desktop. I don't know why would you run Linux as your desktop OS. Kali, yes, because you're running Kali. Also, my rig that I spent all this money on died on me last week. Power supply on. Took it back. Shout out to Micro Center. Not a thing. Matter of fact, when I walked in, all the tech people wanted to work on my machine. They were like, "Oh, you the Blackwell guy." And they're like, "Oh man, he's got to build the rig, man." So the power supply croaked out on it. And the guy's like, "Yeah, we should have never sent you."
You paid all their salaries for 2 years. Of course they want to take care of you.
They're like, we should have let you come out of here. This power supply cannot run this. I'm running 3 NVIDIA Blackwell RTX Pro 4000s.
Did you count the number of Blackwells that were left when they gave it back to you?
I did.
Okay.
You pick up PowerShell and do SIM and make sure, because I don't know what I was using it for. And it is so odd that they kept trying to plug it in. It wouldn't boot, but it wasn't a complete power failure. That third GPU, it would power up, and it's amazing if you watch the BIOS. There's a really unique feature in this that you can do you can record the BIOS function, and then I could play it back. You can't watch it while you're booting up the Windows, but you can record it. So to watch how the BIOS comes up in these these motherboards, it syncs the memory all the way up, and then it starts firing stuff on, and it kept failing when they brought that third GPU online. And then and then the power would just go away. The fans would go off. So they put a 1200 or 1300 watt power supply in it. We tested it, runs like a champ. And then I sync the fans. So I have the fans come on the intervals to be able to keep the thing cooling. So you can do that now. The fans on the GPUs don't come on, but I haven't put it up on a heavy load yet. So I've been doing some multiple model loading, that document I sent you. So I'm really looking at parallelism, and I'm looking at sharding of the prompts and the compute across all 3 of those. But I'm also looking at being able to do isolation of running 2 models on 1 GPU, but then still sharing 1 model across 3 GPUs, and then a 3rd model with 3 to see if I can get it to see how it load balances. And it's amazing if you look at the GPU usage and you look at the performance, that's the thing that's pretty. I've been watching the network usage. You need to really look at what's coming out of your box and what's going. And I put one of my favorite little network sniffers on it. It'll be a show. It'll be a show.
Sounds interesting.
And I almost got global secure access set up because I know you wanted that type of access to the lab. So I did get the box. I got it upgraded to Windows 11. I put it down there. I put it on a GPS. I put it on a UPS so something powers off, because our neighborhood is always losing power. I don't get that. You'll still be able to have access to it. And so I know you want to look at it, and I think a couple other people want to just take a look at the rig. And that way, if you want to run some models on it, I put either 10, probably 10, 2, 4, 6, 4, 8, 12 terabyte NOS on it, so that when you load your models and you want to offload them off the MVMs that I have, the drives are there. You can take your model and put it on that external drive, and you can just name the folder your name if you want. And that way, if you're doing something,
virtual machines can see the GPU.
I do not run virtual machines.
Okay.
I am running WSL, and I'm going through and doing your setup strictly Linux. I'm not trying to run in Windows. Okay. So I don't want to put a virtual machine. I don't want VMware on it, nothing. I'm just going to run WSL, and I'm going to install it. I got LLM Studio. I like LLM Studio better than I like Olama. I really do. It's slicker. So yeah, I'll give you. I just give you direct access.
I have to tell you, I now use Azure. I use Foundry Local.
That was on my list to do, but I didn't do it because it's rabbit hole. Every time you tell me something, I go get on that, and I never finish anything. I'm going to finish this. And then if you want to run it Foundry Local on my machine, you're more than welcome to. You'll probably find that I put another circuit in the house so that I don't have to use the AT&T fiber.
I'm sure that you also have a small nuclear reactor taking care of all this stuff.
Oh yeah, that nuclear reactor, that is so 2000s, man. I got a Singularity, multi-tilt power unit. Yeah, so I'm running basically a micro black hole down in my basement. Cool though. It's all right.
Well, bringing things back to earth here, did you see that they announced SC 500?
I did not, and I'll tell you why. I know that you and I have been talking about it. I think I did the survey, right?
Yeah,
I did.
Yeah, we talked about it 2 weeks ago.
Talked about 2 weeks ago. I didn't. I've literally been heads down, click, scratching my head, looking this up, letting AI give me the wrong answers. Like, this is dumb. Move. It has no. Did someone say this AI is like a 6-year-old with a PhD? Like, man, get out of here. So I'm getting it down now. So when I get off the call with you, I'm going to get right back down to my data center. So the circuit that you will come in will be my will be the Verizon 5G business. So that way I can segment the traffic a little bit, so you can do your thing, right? It was cheap too. It wasn't expensive. So
he does all this to make sure that that I can't actually pen test the rest of his network and all that stuff.
You did that the last time.
It's like I'm walking into Edward's grocery store and there's a security guard there. All the food is like locked up, stuff like that, just so I don't steal anything.
Man, let me tell you, Frank will get you in trouble. I logged into my bank account and all of a sudden there's $2 million in it. And I'm like, Franklin, stop. Don't do that. Oh, yeah, right. Don't do that. I'm still cleaning up my network from you and your pen testing for the last time. So I got to put you on your own network. You stay over there and do that. You have your own.
Now you're just telling stories. Come on.
No. But that's really good, man. And some business stuff, some sales stuff. And, Chris has been generous enough to come on and give us this time. I really like what he was doing with the Sentinel MCP stuff. And so that I did not see the announcement. Give us a quick rundown of the AZ500.
The AZ500 is retiring, so now you go to the SC500, which is now including, because it's now cloud and AI security. It's including an entire section on the AI security side and tools that are there. Let's see what goes in there, because a lot of that stuff's preview and so on. So, hopefully it's more than a footholder by the time they can can put together the content and how they frame the content moving forward. But yeah, it's going to be very AI focused. They're moving like the was it the AZ 204, which was the developer cert, now is an AI cert. So basically, they're converting a lot of stuff over to be kind of AI first in the thinking. So.
You know what's odd though? I want to make sure we give Chris ample time and be respectful of your time. Chris, if we're running over to your next appointment, stop us.
Oh gosh, no, all good.
My question is this, Franklin. I never saw a request for beta exam.
No, so the betas, yeah, I don't know if the betas are out yet. I'd have to look at the community notification when all the betas are coming out. They did their betas for the like AB 100 and stuff like that. So I don't know when the betas are coming out, but if they just blueprinted those, in the past month, it's going to be, gotta give them a little bit of time to get the betas out.
And I did create a rule. I see in my mailbox, the community announcements were getting so noisy that I was just going into a mailbox. So it probably was in the community, and I just didn't see it.
Why don't you have an agent that's taking care of all this information for you and just providing you with what you need to know?
It's called plausible denial. I didn't see your email.
Okay. Well, you can say the same thing too. Your agent decided your email was not worthy, that sort of
My
thing.
agent will rat me out. Yes, he did. I did it. Like only a double agent ratting me out. You know what? It's so are you in my network again? It's so crazy that I don't know. I must have wrote a comment, a blog, or something, and Superhuman sent me, say, hey, thank you for contributing. Here's a free year of Superhuman, and that's the one that does productivity and all that other stuff, right? AI agent. I knew about him. I'm like, I got enough stuff, I'm do it, but I do need to go ahead and write something that's a little bit more robust in Copilot to actually act as a. I don't need an agent. I need a personal assistant. Now that personal assistant is an agent. That's fine, but I do need. My mailbox is full, so.
I want to tell you something that before we get on to our guests that you're going to laugh at. I thought that you set me up today because I was doing a GitHub Copilot training, right? And it's a larger class, so there's 3 instructors there. It's all done. The 2 other instructors and I are talking, and the one instructor says to the other instructor, "Hey, are you going to the MVP summit this year? Where are you staying?" And he says, and they're like, "What about you, Frank?" I'm like, "Oh my goodness."
I didn't do it.
I'm like, let me tell you about my MVP story. So yeah, I thought you'd enjoy the shame that I felt today in talking to these
it's so
2 MCTs and MVPs.
For a long time listeners of the show, they get the inside joke. But frankly, I believe that this is your year. This is the year you get the end.
This is what he says every single time. They nominate me, then him and Rod work against me to make sure that I don't get it, and then they just sit there and laugh at me every single time.
I don't do that.
This is the ongoing joke. I know, it's fine.
I'll be at the MVP summit this year. I think I'm welcoming the new MVP class that's coming in.
Well, I won't be there.
You can come there.
I can come and visit. That's fine. Hi, everyone.
You can stay with me, man. It's fine. It wasn't me, I promise. It's Rod. Rod's not here. It's Rod's fault.
Oh, it's Rod? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He's the mastermind, huh?
The mastermind. But hey, we got some interesting stuff we'll throw into the show notes. Couple of announcements. It's rumor mill. I'll say it. Let everybody know, disclosure, that I am a gainfully employed and highly gracious Microsoft employee. The information I disclose right now, and so is Chris, is not something that would embargo, but it has been rumored out. There's a rumor about we're going to have a new SKU of E7. I will sit here and I can say it in confidence that if Mary Jo Flowley, who's been part of the Microsoft ecosystem for longer than my career, she put on her blog, that makes it so. Microsoft is getting ready to release a new North Star SKU, which is E7. I am not privileged to say what it has in it, because everything else would be rumor mill. As soon as I know as an employee and it can be public knowledge, we will post. But there is a E7 SKU coming. I do not know any details. That's the worst English ever. I don't know any details. But I do know that SKU is coming. I don't know when it's going to be released, but there have been some very prominent Microsoft journalists out there who have said this is coming. So I'm regurgitating their stuff. I'm not confirming it. That is going to be interesting. You know, I got my popcorn. I want to see what's going on with that. The other thing, Agent 365 is pretty darn good if you know where some of the hidden buttons are and what you can see. If you just sort of look for something in an indirect manner. It's actually pretty awesome. What else? I learned that you can deploy threat and vulnerability management with CIS benchmark on Windows 365 virtual machine or Azure Virtual Desktop or Windows Virtual Desktop. I wasn't sure at first because I couldn't understand the SKU. Yeah, $3 SKU and $2 SKU. I know the difference now. So that was pretty cool to help a customer with that. Big shout out to Quorum Cyber, friends of the show, Ricky Simpson. They were the MDDR that sort of put that on my plate to go figure out, and I figured it out. And what else did I break today? One thing, it was something about Sentinel in the data lake and the XDR stuff from the last show. I'll figure it out, and maybe we'll bring it up on the next show. But I found a nuance when you're bringing XDR stuff in when you have multi-workspaces. I found something else. So if you have a single workspace, nothing. But when I had two workspaces, and I'm like, oh,
you can't send the XDR data to both. Yeah, it's only the primary. Yeah,
it's only primary. Yeah, I have a history with that particular feature set from the MTO stuff. So I'm going to test it one more time. But I found something that may warrant me writing something up, yet another paper, and send it over to engineering and say, yes, what I found. We'll see. Nothing nefarious, nothing. I'm just like, that's a very nuanced and not highly documented behavior of what I'm seeing in this. So I sent it to someone else to test. I said, tell me if you're seeing what I'm seeing. If it is, I'll come to you and tell you. I'll tell you first, Chris. Yeah, I'm like, look at this. Is that what I'm seeing? And like, yeah, I'm like, maybe it's supposed to be that way. Frank, is that your cat?
Mine.
Okay. I know Frank has a gazillion dogs. I didn't know he had a cat. All right. So to our listeners, you've heard me banter and winter on. We got some good stuff in the show notes this week. Thanks to our returning guest, Chris Stelzer, security engineer extraordinaire, Sentinel guru, all the things, friend of the show. We asked him to come on and talk about a recent demo, recent being relative, and a LinkedIn post and some of the work he's been doing around Microsoft Sentinel, its integration with MCP server, as well as the AI. That's sort of the elephant in the room about how everything's supposed to be powered. There will be a test, but there is a demo he's going to show. I'm going to bring it up. And Chris, we want to do a quick reintroduction to our listeners, and I'll give the show to you, sir.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm Chris Stelzer, senior solution engineer around the cybersecurity space. So I'm kind of involved in really anything around Defender, Sentinel, and I spent a lot of time in the automation space, tons of logic gaps in the Sentinel playbooks. And then Security Copilot came. I spent a ton of time in that space. And then we decided to, launch Sentinel Data Lake. That became a big priority. And then with Sentinel Data Lake came Sentinel MCP. So I kind of went all in on, what can we do with Sentinel MCP server as well as the other MCP servers that exist out there? So I'm going to primarily drive all of this through GitHub Copilot. So that's kind of a prerequisite to kind of get started with a lot of this stuff is, get yourself GitHub Copilot. This whole project is published on my GitHub repository. So we can drop a link in. Basically, the project itself is really just a core set of agentic skills within VS Code, as well as a core Copilot instructions file. So once you start working with GitHub Copilot, you start to learn basically what this Copilot instructions file is basically designed to do. And it's kind of like a core way that you would like GitHub Copilot to behave as you're sort of exploring data within the ecosystem. So this core Copilot instructions file Comes with my project. Again, you can just ask for GitHub Copilot for instructions on how to install it. I've had a lot of people install it that way. Just pass it the link and say, hey, I'd like help installing this. How would I go ahead and do it? And you basically just clone the repo. There's really not much to it. There's a couple prerequisites like Python for some threat intel modules that I have in here and other things like that. But in a nutshell, the core Copilot instructions file basically has a set of defined MCP servers that come with this particular project. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them within the Microsoft ecosystem. There's other MCP servers that are very useful to deal with. The core one that I use a lot is the Sentinel Data Lake MCP. So this lets you explore using GitHub Copilot and natural language, really anything behind Sentinel Data Lake. And this is really powerful because you can look back like years, right? You could have up to 12 years of data in Lake. So there's a ton of stuff you can do interacting with Sentinel Data Lake. Also, even if you're not on Sentinel from a data lake perspective, you can also take advantage of the Sentinel Triage MCP. There's like a whole section of tools designed around exploring incident data, vulnerability data. So there's an entire MCP tools list that exists out there. And so this would, all of these tools from an MCP perspective would work even if you didn't have Sentinel Data Lake deployed. So it's interesting that, you could run queries against advanced hunting to look for stuff, which is available through the triage tools for 30 days. Or you could look up data using data lake tools, which are available for, however long the data persists in data lake. And this Copilot instructions file actually has some neat fallback capabilities. So if you're asking to explore data in sign-in logs or security event logs, it can use advanced hunting to start. And if you need to go back further, it can just fall back to data lake. So because it knows these MCP tools exist, it has the ability to freely kind of choose which of the tools are best suited when exploring a variety of data sources within the environment. Some of the other ones I really like that are part of the project, KQL search, right? So we all know this is one that was designed by Toby, the Sentinel.blog. So his KQL search MCP is awesome, and it lets GitHub Copilot tap into really anything behind publicly available KQL queries across GitHub. So really powerful in that regard. There's also obviously the Microsoft Learn MCP, huge. Like once you start exploring, like pulling Microsoft documentation in addition to running queries and exploring data, all that data kind of comes back, and the LLM's able to sort of synthesize and draw patterns between what did I see in Sentinel, what does Microsoft's documentation say, and really kind of stitch that data together. So I've had a ton of fun like exploring Microsoft Learn, especially when developing agent skills, which we'll get into as well. And then there's also Graph MCP. So Graph MCP can really target a ton of API endpoints in Graph. And this is kind of a neat MCP server from a Graph perspective because MCP servers rely on what we call tools. And there's no way the engineering team could create a Graph MCP tool with one tool for every endpoint. Because if you think of how many endpoints Graph has, like it's got thousands. So the way that they developed this MCP tool is pretty innovative. They basically just have a tool called suggest queries. So if I ask to can you query my data collection rules in Azure Monitor? It actually asks Graph API, how do I find that data? And then the MCP tool responds with a sample Graph query of how to get that data. So it's a really neat way to actually retrieve data by reducing sort of or limiting the number of tools that this MCP server has. We don't need to publish 2,000 tools, one for every Graph API call. And then the last one is really around Azure MCP. So Azure MCP also has one that allows you to explore data across log analytics, run KQL queries that way, gather resources across subscriptions and resource groups. So between these various MCP tools, if I can reach anything in Azure, I can reach anything in Sentinel, I can reach anything in Defender, anything in Graph, anything on Microsoft Learn, and all publicly available KQL repositories. That is enough to equip GitHub Copilot with a ton of tools to really do some pretty innovative things. So I'll pause. You guys have any questions so far as we get into it? Yeah.
I have a question.
Please.
This is awesome. Since you come on the show and we knew of you before you came on, you said Toby and he threw me off for a minute. I was like, oh, he means Noodle. So shout out to Noodle for that. I remember when he was developing that. Give me an idea. You and I talked offline.
Yeah.
Let's sit here and say that the person who wants to do this has the prerequisite minimum amount of experience to be doing it, meaning you were enrolled. What's the lift from I have nothing built to if I put a reasonable amount of effort to get this done?
I would say 10 or 15 minutes. So you can just say, GitHub Copilot, give me step-by-step instructions for installing this project if I was a new user, and give it the URL. So what it basically does in this case is it reads my repository, it reads my setup instructions, and GitHub Copilot will walk you very quickly for installing this project. All it does is basically clone the repository. So all these config files exist locally for GitHub Copilot to interact with. There's a config file with the various MCP servers. So all these are hosted MCP servers by Microsoft. There's nothing to install. You don't need Docker, you don't need containers, you don't need to build these MCP servers. They're just URLs in a config file. It's really simple in terms of that regard, that process. There is a config file with some API keys. So you can see here the prerequisites, pretty simple. Azure CLI if you want it. Python, you need GitHub Copilot, you need VS Code, but that's it. Like basically it walks you through exactly how to clone the repository. So even just ask it, step 1, clone the repository. It'll clone it for you. It'll install Python for you. It'll copy the configuration file locally. So you have all those MCP servers ready to go. So I've had a lot of people install this in under 10 minutes. It's a pretty simple mechanism to just clone the project, get the config file with the Copilot instructions file ready to go so you can start asking questions and exploring data in the environment.
Is your project hard-coded in any manner that if I wanted to make any changes to it to include additional MCP servers for reference that you would prohibit that? Or once I have a clone of it?
No, gosh, no. Yeah, you can add whatever MCP servers you want. And that's why I said, like, I give you a really good config mcp.json file with all of the MCP servers I like to use. You can feel free to add your own, right? You can just drop additional MCP servers in this config file and continue to augment this project with additional MCP servers as you see fit. And that's what makes GitHub Copilot and VS Code such a flexible platform. Well, not all the customers are in the Microsoft ecosystem. You might have Sentinel One, you might have CrowdStrike, you might have Palo. Like being able to add all of those additional MCP servers to drive automation and skills is really, really powerful. And the big win as well is with the Microsoft MCPs, at least, they all use OAuth. They all use your own permissions. They all use MFA, conditional access, like all the same security controls from an identity perspective. I'm not creating service principals with certificates or app registrations and permissions. I'm not giving this agent permissions to perform tasks without my acknowledgement. So the security risks with interacting with a lot of this data is actually quite minimal because, again, I'm using my own permissions. GitHub Copilot's driving calls to these MCP servers as me. So it's much less risk than something like OpenClaw, where you might have API keys in there that have direct access to your C drive and various other services. So there's a lot less risk in exploring data this way. Yeah,
but before we move on, two observations. Yeah. I noticed that you use Opus 4.6 as your reference model of choice.
It is my model of choice. Since Opus 4.6 came out, I've done nothing but Opus. It's really cost effective, and yeah, it's just so much better than the other models that I've experienced.
Yeah, I'm becoming a big fan of it myself. Yeah. It has already caused me to drop one subscription from one other model because the debate already started. The second thing is I could see where you wanted to create a agent ID to be able to run this as a SOC analyst, non-biological, that could be incorporated into this. So I don't have to run up under my local creds or my biological creds, right?
Correct. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I like in the VS Code experience in GitHub Copilot, it's just another tool in the SOC toolbox, right? It's the ability to freely explore what these MCP servers are capable of, explore data, do threat hunting, do detection engineering, without sort of being chained to some of the other GUIs or tools that we have. Like the ability to just ad hoc run Python or PowerShell or some other type of scripting language. It's very flexible from a GitHub Copilot and VS Code experience. Yeah. So let's dive into some examples. Like I'm just going to run some ad hoc examples to just kind of show you the power of GitHub Copilot with Sentinel MCP, and then we'll kind of build off of that. So I basically just asked a pretty simple question. But what's nice about GitHub Copilot and the newer models is they do like step planning. So I can put in as many questions as I want into a single prompt, and GitHub Copilot will actually go through this. So in this particular question, I've actually asked to evaluate sign-in logs, authentication methods, applications accessed, and conditional access status. I've actually put like 4 or 5 different queries in this particular example for the agent to actually go through and run those queries throughout the environment. So you can see in here, as part of my Copilot instructions, if you have access to multiple workspaces, it prompts you first to select the primary workspace. Then it goes ahead and runs the queries within the environment. In this case, because I only specified the last 7 days, the model is smart enough to actually use advanced hunting through the Sentinel triage MCP. So I'm not paying any data lake query costs in order to do this. And it's able to do this very quickly. It can actually do this in parallel. I'll show you how you can like blast 10 queries at once against Defender or Sentinel. So it's actually diving into details. It found sign-ins, and after it found sign-ins, it determined it should dig a little bit deeper to get detailed breakdown. And you can click on any one of these steps, and you can actually see the underlying KQL that was ran. So it's very transparent. It's not a black box. It's not like I put a prompt in, I get some data back, and I have no idea where it came from. Everything is sort of in here from a prove your work perspective. So just like that, it was able to run 3 or 4 queries with a single prompt that returned sign-in log data, authentication methods that were used, all the applications that were accessed. And you'll see how it kind of weaves a lot of this narrative. And this is what I find are really good with these modern LLMs is, you know, I actually have in the Copilot instructions to use like color coding for like risk assessments, make sure all your statements are based on evidence. So based on actual data, not hallucinations. So you can see in here, really strong security posture, right? The authentication methods are using device-bound passkeys. All the applications that were used, the full conditional access status, all the conditional access policies that came from those authentications, all the source IPs, and a full observation of summaries. So that was from one prompt in the environment. It actually ran 4 or 5 queries, triggering a variety of MCP tools, pulled that data back and gave me an answer as to an understanding of what's happening with this particular identity in the environment.
I got a good, I made an observation here. It seems like we have evolved away from slapping people's hands by trying to say you a bad prompter, you need to be a prompt engineer. Your natural language request was very
simple.
Very simple, because you said run some queries.
Yeah, exactly.
Which means this is offloading the MCP to narrow it down based on your config and what you have in there. Saying, because you like, it basically you told it, go do what's best. And
go do its best. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
So what's awesome is like you can, and I find that I have a lot of, you know, I find it interesting to allow the LLM some freedom as you're exploring various data sets. Like I've had it brute force a lot of KQL queries just by like running queries, validating the schema, seeing if those queries return results. If not, adjust them. So giving it a little bit of that freedom is great, but occasionally you want more structured approach. And this is really where agent skills come in. So agent skills really ramp this up to the next level. So if I, as an example, said, can you investigate the device, Stelznet-util over the last 7 days? That's a very vague question. You know, if I didn't have a skill for this, it would probably just run a bunch of queries and figure this thing out. But what it's actually going to do now is look into the various skills libraries that comes with this project. So agentic skills isn't new. This is something that's been around for a while. If you've followed the OpenClaw thing, it's very similar. Skills are essentially just markdown files that tell the agent how it needs to behave. So in the case of investigating a computer, there is a computer investigation skill that has a set of pre-configured workflows in order it needs to follow in order to answer this request. So when I ask to investigate a device over 7 days, it says, hey, do I have a skill that can do this? Yes, I do. And in this case, it looks up this computer collection skill. And this computer collection skill actually has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Sentinel data lake queries, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 queries across Defender for Endpoint APIs, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 more Graph API queries. So this is actually going to autonomously blast all of these queries based on the instructions file. And all these queries are actually in the instructions file. In this case, I'm not giving the model a lot of freedom. I'm saying, I want you to investigate a computer. This is a skill that's part of the library. This is exactly how you need to investigate a computer. Run these queries that are predefined and return the results. And because these exist in a repository, from a security engineering perspective, it's very easy to create them. Like once maybe you're specialized in a domain around email threats, you do a threat hunting campaign looking for email threats, and you just ask GitHub Copilot, hey, can you package this investigation up into a reusable skill that anybody on the team can call upon at any time? I would then commit that to the repo. That skill exists. So you can really collaborate and build these skills very, very quickly throughout the environment. So you can see occasionally some of these MCP servers, because they're relatively new, occasionally there is timeout issues on some of them. So I'm not sure exactly why some of these MCP servers have timeout issues. A lot of the times you just ask them to continue and they just basically just continue on. So this is a computer investigation. It's going to churn away, like it might churn away for 5-6 minutes running these various queries, gathering this data from Graph, from Sentinel. So I can pull up the previous computer investigation that I pulled for that particular one. And you can basically see just how in-depth the response is once it comes back. So when the response for the computer investigation comes back, I first know everything about the machine, right? Is it an Azure VM? Is it onboarded? Is MDE healthy? What's the internal IP, external IP? Any incidents that are opened against that machine? All the security alerts against that machine, all the logged on user accounts, all the sign-in events, all the process activity occurring on those machines, all the network activity, file activity, threat intelligence activity, software inventory, and a full overall risk assessment. Like all of this information and queries was pulled from a single prompt. Investigate computer X last 7 days, go do your thing based on your skill and present that evidence to me once you're done.
So my question is that it's probably within your config, you're using your identity for OAuth. So you are connecting in some part of this process to a tenant and or a subscription that you own. Correct. So let's go back to the bean counters.
Yeah.
What is the fiat liability for this, or what's the cost?
So the cost. So one computer investigation run. So the way GitHub Copilot is priced, it's priced per premium request. So in this case, I'm actually using 3 premium requests because I'm using Cloud Opus. So every prompt is 3 premium requests. Now, from a dollars perspective, that's about 15 cents. 15 cents USD for it's 5 cents per single premium request, around that. And you get 1,000 premium requests a month with GitHub Copilot. So you could do about 15 of these a day, and really that would fit within the $40 a month that a GitHub Copilot resides. Beyond that, if you want to pay per use, like if you exceed it, it's 5 cents per premium request. So each request is 15 cents because I'm using 3 of them when I use Cloud Opus. If I use Cloud Sonnet, it would only be 1. So when I ask to run a computer investigation, it might churn for 10 minutes running all of these queries against advanced hunting, Graph API, Defender APIs. Guess what my total cost of this would be? 15 cents. 15 cents to run this investigation with 15 KQL queries, multiple Graph API queries, Defender for Endpoint queries, and all this data returned. That, from a pricing perspective, is just 3 premium requests with GitHub Copilot.
So similar to rideshare, once you put your point and destination, you get the cost. Yep. Regardless.
So this is why I say, you want your skills to do as much as possible. Obviously, you don't want them to churn for an hour because there is timeout limits. It'll tell you, hey, it's been working on this for a while. Do you want to continue? So I've hit that a few times, but you want to try to get them to be within the, 10-minute time range so you can get the most value out of a single premium request. So if I'm just ad hoc prompting, I'm churning through premium requests quite quickly. But like once I turn these into skills, they can do a lot more advanced things. So the one other thing that I like is, from a Honeypot perspective. So I've always had kind of a Honeypot in my lab, just a web server exposed to the internet. And the issue with that is, like, I really want to explore specifically, what threat actors are after on that particular Honeypot. So I threw together a Honeypot skill. So I can basically ask, hey, can you investigate? So if I said, what does the Honeypot investigation skill entail, high level? So it's going to explain to me kind of what are the steps to investigate the security logs on a Honeypot. And these get really, really interesting because, you might have RDP open, you might have a web server open. So I've basically created a skill for investigating a Honeypot. So I want to generate a report to know what the threat actors are after, where they're coming from. So in this case, from a honeypot investigation perspective, what it basically does is I ask, hey, can you just investigate my honeypot in the last 90 days? And it goes ahead and blasts queries across Sentinel looking for RDP, brute force, SSH. It takes all the IPs, enriches them with multiple threat intel sources, Shodan, VPN.io, Abuse IPDB. There's like a little Python module that's part of this project. And anytime you want IP addresses enriched, you just ask, hey, can you enrich these IPs? Bang, it just hammers those APIs, pulls that data back. And the key with running a lot of these prompts is you don't want to lose that knowledge. Like if I just asked it to do something and output something in chat, that data is kind of lost. It's buried in my chat. No one else can really take advantage of it. So what I recommend doing in a lot of cases is have it generate reports for you. In these cases, generate them in Markdown file. Markdown files are great from a reporting perspective. They're very flexible. They can be published on GitHub. They look really well when they're produced. So if I said, hey, just investigate my honeypot over the course of the last year, right? Because we have a year's worth of logs in Sentinel, you actually get a really awesome report that comes through like this. And this report actually synthesizes explicit. It takes about 10 minutes to run, but it explicitly goes through all of those queries, right? Brute force, RDP, failed logons, and then synthesizes all that telemetry into a really cool report that I can better understand who these threat actors are, how they're after particular endpoints, what are they looking at. So in this case, you can see it says the honeypot was been under sustained attack over a period of time, attracting 70,000 failed logons. It looks like a massive brute force RDP campaign originating from Ukraine and Dutch infrastructure, collectively generated over 67,000 failed auth events in 50 minutes. That's crazy. Like this happened in January when I turned it on. I turned my honeypot on maybe like once a month and I let the attackers at it. And then I just have GitHub Copilot generate me this report. And it's really useful because if you look at some of the novel techniques in here, like if I scroll down and I look at things like, from a threat intelligence perspective, because it's integrated with Shodan, it actually asks Shodan what these IPs are. And you'll see things like, hey, it looks like a DVR, totally a compromised DVR device is maybe part of a botnet that's attacking my honeypot. So the ability to kind of like pull in some of that enriched IP address detail and synthesize it in the report, as well as things like known attacker patterns. Like I now learn that these threat actors are after like things like system BC malware. They're basically looking to see if my server's already compromised with malware. Yep. So it's interesting to kind of see, you can see Nmap fingerprinting taking place, and this entire report was generated with one prompt. Run me a honeypot investigation the last 30 days, hit enter, come back 10 minutes later. And this report is now persisting in my document library that I can use as context for future investigations.
Yeah. One question I would ask.
Yeah.
This is excellent. It gives me an idea. I want to do this now because I'm a big fan of that. But
yeah,
if I go back to the source telemetry, which is the gospel,
yep.
This is assuming that your Sentinel environment has the proper analytics configured to be able to create the alerts and the incidents. I'm not going to talk to defender people. I'm just talking to Sentinel people.
Yeah. So
it is dependent upon that if your Sentinel environment is configured and deployed.
So it's dependent on the logs, right? It doesn't really matter about the incidents because all this is doing is querying the IIS logs, the security event logs, and the device network event logs. So MDE logs, IIS logs, and general Windows security logs. So as long as those logs are in Sentinel, this is how this report would get generated.
So let me ask question part 2.
Yeah.
Suppose I brought all of these logs in by AMA, whatever, syslog, whatever it may be. But I never I went to the content hub, I downloaded a solution, but I didn't want to use any of the analytics. I could still run this, right?
100%. Yeah. So the only part of the report that wouldn't show up is like if you scroll down, you can actually see security incidents. So this would basically tell you your server hasn't seen any security incidents. In my case, I have some analytic rules that are showing, and these are this section would just be blank in your report. It'd be like, hey, I have no incidents for this honeypot. So that's not a big deal, right? You still have the logs. You can still synthesize a narrative around what they're after, the endpoints and those types of things very quickly. Now, where it gets also really cool is handing this report off for context for engineering new detections. So as an example, like if I read this report and I was like, hey, I'm interested into engineering some additional detections, I could basically run a prompt like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to give the LLM the Honeypot report as context. So all I did was, again, click the plus icon. I'm giving the LLM the report, and I'm actually asking it now, hey, how could I add additional custom detections to support this Honeypot? Why don't you review the report, all the targeted data sources, and search for any existing detections against those tables. So this is interesting because what it's going to do is actually going to query Sentinel to see if there's any analytic rules or custom detections that I already have. And then if I don't have them, it's going to research 5 additional detections that I could increase detection coverage against the TTPs within this Honeypot. So I'm going to kick this off and it's going to go to town. So it's going to literally read the report, come up with some ideas. It's going to query the analytic rules in Sentinel and the custom detections within Defender. And there's no easy way, there's no MCP tool for analytic rules or custom detections, at least not yet. So it actually will call Azure Monitor APIs and Defender APIs just through command line. It's very interesting. Like it runs command lines, because if you've ever tried to figure out like how many custom detections do I have, how many analytic rules I have in Sentinel, it's not easy, right? You have to use the various APIs. So it's going to read this detection authoring skill that I have, and it's going to basically read the report, look at my existing detections, and help engineer additional detections to support further coverage. And what's awesome in this case is not only will it engineer those detections, but it'll test them, right? It'll run them against Sentinel across 30 days, 90 days, a year to really vet those detections. And you'll notice as part of my Copilot instructions, I actually taught it to search for existing detections in the query library. So as part of my project, often, I have the LLM produce a lot of query documents. These are markdown files with just a ton of KQL queries. And as these get added to the library, the LLM can use those as reference. Oh. So it actually gets better over time. It's interesting. As I'm doing threat hunting, it's like, hey, do I have any queries that could potentially look for email-based threats? And actually, yeah, there's a whole email-based threat markdown file with hundreds of queries for tracking email threats. So the more you populate queries and the more you have it generate, test, and produce these queries, the better the LLM gets from an investigation perspective. So you can see in here, it's actually, yeah, go ahead.
Before you go there, because Frank has been putting me on all this homework. When we're talking LLMs, right?
Yeah.
There are probably 10 in the world that are top level LLMs. And you're talking about Google and Meta and all these other guys, Cohere and some of these. When you're saying LLM, which LLM in particular?
Always Claude Opus.
Okay. When you're programming this Claude Opus LLM, help me understand the separation. You're talking about the readily available LLM that you purchased from Claude that still resides in their Neo Cloud. Where does the LLM reside? Very basic. You're not running it locally, so when you're training this model, this is your local context of the LLM.
Yeah.
Your subscription to get it. Okay.
So within, I mean, it's all back behind GitHub Copilot. So right, this isn't like using the publicly available models. Yeah, Frank can.
So this is not a local downloaded version of the LLM.
Correct.
This is GitHub Copilot's LLM.
You bet.
That it's actually loading the MCP information and passing the call over, but it can actually see and work with your files locally for what it's doing.
So the prompts and the answers, all that data stays in my ID. As long as I have BitLocker on my device, this data doesn't go anywhere. I'm not handing my data to Anthropic or anything like that, right? Yes, the calls are going through data centers that Microsoft owns, but that data is staying locally.
Okay, that's what I was asking. So that data stays local to the context of the description and ID that you have. You're just referencing the big model to train whatever your shim of the LLM that's there, because you didn't download it. That's what I was trying to get to. I got
it. No, there's no download. Yeah, GitHub Copilot, the models are kind of built in. Yeah.
Do you have the AI toolkit installed?
No, I don't think I do. Yeah.
If you install that real fast, then he'll be able to see all the stuff local that you have.
Oh yeah.
Could you use the toolkit to build agents to go through that way?
Yeah, I very much could. I mean, agents are, agentic skills are very, very easy. They're just markdown files that tell the agent how to behave. I haven't messed around with using like local LLMs or anything like that. So you can basically see what happened here is back on the detection authoring skill, it searched all my analytic rules and custom detections that cover these tables, and it came up with a set of existing new detections that it's going to write and test. And in this case, it's looking for CVE exploit patterns. It's looking at sensitive file enumeration. All of these detections are actually artifacts that were observed in my Honeypot report. So it's interesting. We'll see how it's actually able to write these detections, test these detections against Sentinel Data Lake. And then once it finishes testing them, it's actually going to automatically deploy them to my Defender environment. Now that's a little bit of a trick there, is like what it's going to do is it's going to produce to me, and you'll see occasionally it fails. So in this case, GitHub Copilot failed because a query had a semantic error. The computer column didn't exist, and it recovers from these very easily. Like, it's smart enough to adapt its queries. So it's detection 1 has been tested, detection 2 has been tested. It's now testing detection 3, 4, 5. Within, I would say, 30 seconds, I'll have an entire manifest file with all of those detections ready to rock and roll. Now, where we're moving a lot from a Microsoft perspective is, I don't know if you've heard about the difference between analytic rules and custom detections. There's this long-standing debate. Yeah, so custom detections is where we're trying to push customers. That all the focus from a roadmap perspective is custom detections, custom detections. There's a lot of benefits. They can support a nearly unlimited number of near real-time rules. So I encourage everybody to create custom detections now, not analytic rules. We're working on improving the API for custom detections, should go GA pretty soon, as well as a whole bunch of new additional insights around custom detections.
The tricky part about it, though, when you're in the Defender portal, it's not super obvious where to get to the custom detections, right?
It's exactly, yeah. And it's if you've ever tried creating custom detections, it's kind of complicated. So there's a lot of caveats to how custom detections work. And what's awesome is I put all those caveats inside of my detection authoring skill. So all these detections, like, there's a lot of things, like when you author a custom detection, the impacted assets can't be blank. If it's an NRT rule, you can't use let statements. There's all these weird caveats to custom detections. You can only have a max of 3 attributes referencing in the title or description. There's a lot of these weird caveats. So if you've ever manually created them, you've probably beat your head against the wall realizing, like, why do all these caveats exist? So what I did is put all those caveats in the skill. So when I ask it to author custom detections, it knows all these caveats. And the first few times I had it author me some detections, it got them mostly right. Some of them were a bit wrong. The format was wrong. And I just said, figure out why it was wrong. And in those cases, go ahead and update your skill instructions to understand why those custom detections are wrong. And then basically the skill gets better over time. As long as you're constantly asking GitHub Copilot to make changes to the skill, it will get better over time.
So the custom detection, not to go off tangent, is what we did with the custom detections. It's like going from Windows 95 to 98. They were in MDE, and now we're trying to expand these things out into the Defender portal, and there's a lot of technical baggage left with them. Yes. So they should have rewrote it from scratch, the way that that was called, but neither here nor there.
Yeah, I know we're working on like security copilot agents to help you check the health of custom detections, provision new custom detections. But I'm always in the mindset, like, 80-20 rule. Microsoft will get you 80% of the way there, but there's always that 20% for these kind of solutions to augment what we're doing in this space. And I don't want to wait for a security copilot solution. So this is a really astounding way to do this. So it's almost done engineering test 4. It's running through detection 3. It's got 2 more detections to run through. And then we'll basically have what's called a manifest file. And that manifest file is like basically just a JSON file. The skill basically has some architecture in terms of how it defines those custom detections. So it basically just creates a simple JSON file that I can hand off to a PowerShell script in order to have those custom detections created. So, yeah.
So do you, in your MDE read file, do you have a prerequisite thing? I have not cloned your Git for this just yet.
Yeah, there's a prerequisite list. Yeah, and again, you need Python in here if you want to run some of the IP enrichment modules. You need, it's pretty simple requirements. AZ CLI to run a bunch of Azure command line options. So pretty common, just Microsoft tools. It's very, very easy to get going.
I would also, do you have to put in a deliberate subscription parameter?
So it comes with a small settings config file that's part of the repo and it'll walk you through how to do that. So it does come with a small config file that lets you walk through how to set up those subscription IDs, your tenant ID, and that type of stuff. Yeah.
Very cool. All right.
Yep. So detection 5, all 5 detections.
Trying to get you to show your API keys. That's all he's trying to do. You know?
No, they're all secured behind GitHub secure strings. So,
I would never do that to Chris like the way you do me, Frank.
So we'll see here. We have 5 detections almost done. It's now rereading the skill to get the format that it needs to output that JSON string. Now, I would say when you're interacting with these agents and exploring data, least privilege all time, always run as like security reader, right? Sentinel reader, security reader, because GitHub Copilot can do a lot. It can run PowerShell. So the last thing you want is it maybe doing something when you have standing administrative rights. And in that case, maybe it might make a change to your environment, and it is using your permissions. So making sure your permissions are least privilege, read-only access. So how this would really work in a production sense is it's going to generate me this manifest, and then I would hop in PIM. I would PIM up to security contributor to be able to actually write those custom detections back to Sentinel within the environment.
Cool. I was wondering how you did that, but so
yep.
This has to be deliberate, where it's going to send you the MFA authentication string. You go ahead and do it, and then it kicks off. Okay.
Yep. But in my case, I have standing access already. So once it generates that manifest, I'll be able to basically just say, now go deploy those custom detections, and those custom detections will go away and basically just get created. You actually see, it's interesting to watch it do its reasoning and its thinking. So hey, for the IS detection, I'm planning a 1-hour query scheduled against those logs, since it's not NRT compatible anyway, and those types of things. So kind of watching its thinking and reasoning, I've actually learned a lot of how these LLMs come to those determinations. You can see it's really going through a lot of the critical controls I have in terms of custom detections, how they're formatted, how they work, what are the parameters, and it's really digging deep on sort of understanding those requirements and then producing those recommendations.
So it's reading a schema and making sure that there's not empty tables that it needs to query or either reference in their meaning.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's already ran those queries against Sentinel. It's validated that it's already looked at the schema of all those tables. It's ran those queries against Sentinel. Now it's basically just provisioning my small manifest file, which is going to allow me to create those custom detections.
Very cool.
Yeah, that detection authoring skill actually comes with, so if I look under my skills folder, it actually comes with a PowerShell script to deploy those custom detections. So that's how you basically would just pass it that manifest file, away it goes, deploys those custom detections, and then you're basically good to go in that sense.
Cool. And in this particular demo that you're doing, I think you're referencing 5 different MCP server types.
Yes. Yeah, there's 5 or 6. I mean, yeah, so there's Graph, there's Azure, there's the Defender, there's Sentinel. So yeah, there's some pretty core set of MCP servers as well. Okay. That it integrates with. Yep. You can see in here, it's actually, I'm overthinking this. I love this. The user asked me to write, test, and generate. I've already tested them. So a lot of the times it gets stuck into some of these thought loops of, hey, I'm really overthinking this. The more context that you give it, sometimes it can think too hard in order to produce the results. Yeah.
And something like that, when Opus does that, it seems very Grok-like. Grok it thinks it's clever. Sometimes I've actually got offended by some of the responses, like, "Are you sure you're a principal architect?" Whatever, and keep going. Okay, that's good, man. This is super awesome. The biggest part about this, I'm super excited about, is that this is a time and state. Like the possibilities of where this could expand to is just tremendous. And I'm sure that multiple people have taken this and gone off and done their own thing with it. But let me ask a question, and you don't have to give exact numbers.
Yeah.
I don't know when you sleep. If you do sleep, I don't know if that's a thing. For all I know, you're a human large language model, like I got in my tagline.
Yeah.
You you and I know that Stefan through his 3 cents or 2 bits or whatever they spend in Rome into this. Just a general number. How much time did it take you to put all this together? Just you, not the deployment of when you built this. Because you never tell anybody when you start. You show up at the Oscars.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I said to myself today, like these tools are supposed to make your lives easier, and in a way they do. But in a way, I can get stuff done so much faster that it's constantly moving on to the next thing. Okay, this skill's done. Now, what's another skill that could be useful? Okay. And I'm constantly on to the next thing a lot faster. Whereas before, I'd spend like a week on a project. Now I can write some of these skills in the course of an hour or two and get them to a really functional production ready state. And then I'm like, okay, like what's the next skill I could do? So some of these skills took a lot longer than others. Like the Sentinel ingestion report one, I'm embarrassed to mention how much time I spent on that one. Because I would.
How long did the heat map one take?
Oh, the heat map ones are very, very quick and easy. So the ability to use what are called MCP apps are really, really useful. So things like heat map or Honeypot visualization, heat map and geomaps, these took, I would say, a couple hours, like really not a lot. And MCP apps is a relatively new concept. What MCP apps are is they will give LLMs a visual voice. So as an example, if I ask specifically to generate a heat map of sign-in activity for me across all of these sign-in log entries, it has the ability to query that sign-in log data and return a heat map specifically of my daily 9 to 5 activity. And what's awesome is it's MCP apps will let it visualize and draw these infographics inline in chat. Now, MCP apps are kind of a brand new concept. You can only use them in the insider preview version. But I envision a world where these are extended to the generalized copilots, right? Like if Copilot could actually send me graphs and charts and infographics and render these things in real time, I mean, it's really powerful. And you can see the heat maps generated. So it charts kind of my daily 9 to 5. And I let the LLM kind of break down what are my daily working hours. You can see morning ramp up, workstation boots, OneDrive sync, Teams, sustained security work, heavy portal usage. Yeah. So the heat map actually can show me what my business hours are from a working perspective. It's interesting.
In our manager's hands.
I know. So I did it the last time when my manager was on a call, and it actually said post lunch work strong, heavy after hours work as well in the session. It was quite funny when I was demoing it. So the heat maps and then geo maps are also a possibility. Like, so I have a geo map skill that's in there as well. So if I said, hey, can you generate me a geo map of the threat actors who are touching my honeypot? Within seconds, it queries the logs in Sentinel, takes that data back and generates me a heat map. And what's interesting about these MCP apps is they're interactable GUIs. Like I can literally click on an IP address and interact with it. Ooh. So in this case, I might click investigate in chat, and that GUI actually takes my interaction and puts a new prompt as a follow-up. So you can design these MCP apps to actually be very interactive. So it can query data, render an app real time in chat, allow the analyst to interact with it, and then allow them to sort of pivot off that data in question.
Yeah, the thing with that is when I'm investigating some stuff and I have time, it just infuriates me that even the bad guys are using HackerMine.
Yeah. So we can see all 5 of my honeypot detections are now done. Here's what that manifest looks like. So all those, basically it's just a JSON payload that allows me to create these using the API. So then I basically just say deploy, it's connected, it's going to run the PowerShell script. It does a quick dry run. It then goes ahead and takes the actual manifest file and it deploys them, deploying 1, deploying 2. I'll see, it takes a minute. Yeah. Deploying 1, deploying 2, deploying 3. And if I open my Defender portal and I hop under hunting, custom detection rules.
And he has 1,000 to shame everybody. Then I
don't, but they're creating them right now. That easy. Like literally one prompt, look at my honeypot report, look at my existing rules, author me 5 new detections, test them in Sentinel, and deploy them to Defender. All from a single prompt.
I gotta get Frank. This is you and I project. I'm gonna put you on the hook for some of this.
It's very innovative and freeing to not be chained. You can see all 5 custom detections are in here. All of them are written. They're all tested. They're all, parameter mapped for the alert title and description. All of the MITRE techniques are added to them. It's basically done and done.
And I can tell you that, your methodology is being adopted by companies, because when I get to look over a customer's shoulder, I know darn well they didn't create all these rules. And what I'm also seeing is that certain MDDR are branding their custom detections with an abbreviation that lets you know it's them. I saw one the other day. I was going through and helping a customer out, and all of them, I said, what are all these custom detections that had -BV behind it? And then I go, oh, never mind. I know exactly who's doing this. So I'll be quiet on that piece. But I'm starting to see a way that they differentiate between custom created and XDR managed companies that do it too. This has been awesome, Chris. Man, truth be told, we need a part 2 on this.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, we haven't even touched half the skills that I have in here. But feel free, take a look, clone it, explore the various skills. It's very easy to get started.
Yeah, and I won't commandeer any more of your time, but I'd love to have a part 2 of this where you come in and maybe we'll be on your schedule. I know you're on a different time zone, to come in and give a part 2 about your top 3 that, hey, if you're not running this, you're wrong. Don't be wrong, be right. That might be that episode name.
Yeah.
Chris's Don't Be Wrong, Be Right episode, and run that. Man, thank you so much for this. I'm not in the show. If there's something else you want to show, we can go on.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll just say, there are some questions in chat. All this is in, I think, all the MCP servers and what I showed you today, everything's generally available with the exception of, I think, the Sentinel Triage MCP. That one's still in preview, but everything else is publicly available, and even GA. All the Sentinel MCP stuff's GA. All these tools are available, so very, very easy to do. And the other question is, how long would a heat map take? So MCP apps are sort of like a brand new thing. I didn't know anything about MCP apps, but the idea is I basically posted a bunch of the documentation, gave GitHub Copilot the idea of what an MCP app is, and said, hey, I would like to, and again, the documentation has some examples of what MCP apps are. And they actually produced an MCP apps demo repository. So what I did is I fed GitHub Copilot this demo repository. And I believe within the demo repository, they had some examples in here. I can't find them right now, but they had some examples. And one of them was GeoMap. And as an example, I said, hey, I'd like to turn this into my own MCP app to explore and display data within the environment. So I basically fed GitHub Copilot a lot of the documentation and then said, hey, I'm new to the MCP apps protocol. Can you make me an MCP app in order to generate a map? And it took me a couple hours to mess around, but once that tool is in there, I can basically ask for a geomap against any data that has, at least GPS coordinates. The data has to have location or GPS coordinates in order to draw those maps.
Yeah, we had a question from Andrew. How long would it take for someone to learn this, to set it up, and go from there? It really depends. But one of the things I've learned with any consumer grade model that you use, set the expectations and the persona. Yep. In the persona of a novice with so and so years of experience, and just be very honest in it. And then go, oh, okay, you don't have that much experience, so I'm going to give this as much detail for you. And then one of the cool things I like about a lot of the models, it broke it down into a deployment. It say, okay, on day 1, do this. On day 2, so tell it, I have 5 days to get this set up. It will break down the setup stages for you to do it. Now, when you say 5 days, it's assuming you're given 24 hours. It still doesn't understand. I'm in a work day. So then go and say, I have 2 hours a day dedicated to this. Give me a plan where I can get this accomplished, and so and so. And most of the models will give you, on day 1, do this. Day 2, do this. Day 3, do this. Assuming you're going to do a dedicated so and so. Grok even came back and said, if you find yourself with some extra time and you want to get ahead and be an overachiever, that's what it said. Go do this on this day right here. I responded, I am not an overachiever. Who do you think I am? Frank. And you say, if you're referring to Frank on your podcast, he is an overachiever. I can show you the prompt. It was funny. Man, Chris, thank you so much, man.
For sure.
Happy New Year. Last time I saw you was last year.
Yeah, it's been a while. Say New York in December, yeah.
Yeah, dude. And are you coming to the MVP Summit?
No, not myself.
All right. Well, man, anytime you want to come on this show, showcase, not that you need it, you well know, but we will welcome you always back. I'd like to have a part 2 of this, and then the premise of the show would be the top 3 things you want to show. Because when you have all of this, you struggle with, okay, what do I show?
Yeah.
Top 3 things you want to show. And I'm going to get this set up. Frank and I are going to do it together. He's always trying to get me to do his work. But
it's very easy. Like I said, ask GitHub Copilot to walk you through the deployment, and it'll help you clone it. It'll run the commands. It'll install the prereqs. Like it's your own little Copilot for deploying this project.
We do this in the show. We spot gift everybody. I'm going to send you something for a thank you from the show. You may have to pay customs on it.
All good.
I sent stuff up there to Nick, and I sent stuff to Brody, and they like, man, we got to pay customs on this. Remember one guy? Remember Jeff Root?
Yep.
Yeah, he's like, it got all the stuff for you, man. But I said, I'll pay you for the customs, man. He said, no, thank you, man. Just more enough. I want to put something in the mail for you, man. A little something. Hey, I got something to show you guys really quick. Hold on 1 second. You want to stand up and go get it? Yeah, and go. I meant to have it ready. I was helping a friend out. They bought a business. They had all this legacy equipment. They were throwing away stuff, and I kept some stuff that they were throwing away. They had an old compact, and they had a old Dell that had Windows 95, the little fluorescent sticker. And I opened it up, and they had a 28.8 modem in it, IDE drives in it. I took the Pentium 2 processor out. It took me a minute to figure out how to get it off the motherboard because they were screwed down this huge heat sink. But I think I'm gonna get me a chain made around it and say this is what Intel was the boss. Not now. All right. Well, everyone, thanks. We'll be back in 2 weeks. This is part 2 of a micro series where Ed gets someone else to do his homework. So wait till you see the guest in 2 weeks that's going to come on, and then Frank's not going to bother me anymore. Right? Do that. We'll see you guys. Everyone have fun. Keep your MCP servers tight and close to the vest. Right? Because I may be lurking. You don't want to reference my MCP server for sure. I'm good.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
All right.